Hello and welcome to another Coffee with Colm. Thanks very much for tuning in. The objective behind this series of Coffees with Colm is whereby I take my business journey as chronicled in my book, Feeding Johnny How to Build a Business Despite the Roadblocks, over a cup of coffee for about 5 minutes or so on a weekly basis, and share some of the lessons that I've learned along the way, or am learning perhaps along the way, for you to consider in your business journey. Well, I fired 2 clients this week. And I'm sure you're asking yourself, why in God's name would I fire some clients? But let me tell you why. First of all, let's define what a client is. A client, in my opinion, is somebody who is willing to work with you, is willing to take your product or your service and pay you sufficient money for you to make a profit on that transaction. So in other words, you give them something of value and you get something of value in return. And in this particular case, 2 clients that I was working with were just not playing ball. Let me explain that to you. The journey since I wrote Feeding Johnny has been very interesting. Carambola, which is the day job, is flying along, thank God. It's going really well. Never been busier as it happens at the time of this recording, which is great. Feeding Johnny, the writing of Feeding Johnny has led to all sorts of other doors opening up for me. And you may have seen some of my earlier blogs, including the cash flow quadrant, where I talk about the 4 players in the world of business: the employee, the self-employed, the business owner, the investor. I was an employee, I became self-employed. I'm learning the skills of being a business owner, and I'm learning the skills of being an investor. And in the course of that journey, I'm out there helping other business owners do the same, move from one quadrant to the other, from being an employee to being self-employed, from being self-employed to being a business owner, and so on. And so they're the clients that I'm referring to. So over a period of the last year or so, I've picked up several clients that I'm working with in different parts of the country, all in different businesses. And the contract that we made with each other was that I would sit with them, figure out what's going on in their business, and then, using my own experience over the many years, that I would apply that experience to the challenges in their business, offer them some advice, and the objective is that together we would help them overcome some obstacles and allow their businesses drive on into the future. And in 2 particular cases, despite my best efforts, 2 business owners kept resisting my attempts, and in one case 50% of any meetings that we had scheduled were unavoidably cancelled at the last minute, and in another case, despite my best efforts, one guy kept defaulting back to his old bad habits, which weren't serving his business very well and hadn't been for a number of years. And I finally decided that I wasn't adding any value, and in fact it was becoming a frustration for them, me banging on every week about what I felt they should be doing. And from my perspective, it was a frustration because I was putting time and effort, not just the time allotted in my diary to have the meeting, but the time around that in terms of planning it and reviewing it. And I was putting that time and effort into their businesses, albeit their businesses as clients of mine, and I realised it wasn't going anywhere. And I decided that the worst place for us as business owners to have somebody is on the fence. Absolute worst place in the world is to have somebody on the fence. We need to get them off the fence one way or the other. They either become clients and we work with them, or they don't become clients and we forget about them. I don't mean that in any bad sense, but we move on to other prospects that can become clients. Too often we put people on the fence and we hold on to them and we make sure that they're okay. Are you comfortable there sitting on the fence now? And I don't upset you, so because at some stage you might become a client of mine. But I think too often we do that, and really and truly we're far better off, in the nicest possible way, helping people get off the fence either side. They either become clients and we drive on, or they don't become clients and we still drive on. And that's the important thing, we still drive on. And here's the point. Every hour that there are 168 hours in the week for you and for me, 24 hours in a day. And every hour that you or I apply to anything is 1 hour less that we can apply to something that has better value for us. Now, when I say better value, I don't necessarily mean monetary value. It might be taking an hour out, it might be taking an hour off, it might be taking your spouse for breakfast. But every hour that we apply to something, if it's not adding value to our lives, whether that's material value or emotional value, well then it's basically an hour wasted. And in 2 particular cases I realised over a period of time that these relationships weren't healthy for them, weren't healthy for me, and fundamentally they were just sitting on the fence, and unless I did something about that, they'd continue to sit on the fence ad infinitum. So I decided to push. And in both cases, I decided to say, I don't think this is working. I think it's time for us to part company. I'd much sooner shake hands now and walk away. And if and when the time is right and we get back together, happy days. And if it never is, that's also absolutely fine. And I wish you both all the success in the world. And to say they were taken aback was probably an understatement, but they were, and I made the right decision for me, and I also made the right decision for them. So I want you just to consider what I'm sharing here with you today, that sometimes it's important, as important, to fire a client as it is to find a client. Well, thanks very much for tuning in, and I hope and trust that you got something from this particular Coffee with Colm. If you've enjoyed it and you think somebody else might benefit, please pop the link off to somebody else. If it's your first time stumbling across a Coffee with Colm, go to our homepage, colmobrienmotivation.com, leave us your details, and we'll send you a link like this on a weekly basis, obviously with a different lesson attached. If you'd like to leave us a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Go to the bottom of the blog and do so. What I'd ask that you do is consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for the next week or so. And then most importantly, please come back next week and let's have another coffee together, and I'll share another lesson and see where it might lead for both of us. Keep the faith. Delicious. Get some good coffee. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.